أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له. My dear friends, Assalamu alaikum. I need to put out a message for my dear brothers and sisters whom I've received a number of requests from to put them at ease and to add more information to the sort of major and cataclysmic ideas that I have put forward on this channel, especially earlier on in the channel, not so much the recent videos. So I think it's important for me to just reinforce and to offer you some more food for you to think over and to mull over and hopefully bring peace and calm and tranquility to your hearts. So I think the main problem is, and I can identify because I've experienced this problem, the main problem I experienced about 7 or 8 years ago was a sense of bewilderment, a sense of ruin, mental, intellectual ruin. I experienced a loss of comfort, of security 7 or 8 years ago. And let me give you a bit of details. Maybe you can understand that I'm as human as you are, and I have the same fears and the same concerns that you have. You see, I would put it back to 2011. Now, I've always had a fairly skeptical stance towards these tens of hundreds of books written by people claiming to represent the ideas that God is standing for, God's word. I've always been a bit skeptical, but my position then, and many of my good friends who still believe that, who still stand there, their position was that, well, you just sift through the books, and when it comes to hadith, you basically take the good and you leave the bad, right? That's how you think. If you're a hadith, I wouldn't say a hadith worshipper, because somebody who worships something doesn't question it, accepts it unquestioningly. And I call that a hadith worshipper. You see, if you worship somebody like your mother, if you adore somebody, if you are really committed to somebody like your mother, you don't question her or your father, right? There's a special loyalty and commitment to that. You adore that person or that thing, right? Now, hadith has occupied a place similar to that. The names, if I mention the names of Sahih Sitta, Bukhari, Imam Muslim, Abu Hurairah radiyallahu an, if I mention these words, they're supposed to conjure up awe and a feeling of more than respect. It is a feeling of reverence, of the type of reverence that you have when you are in a spiritual state. That, my friends, is what I'm arguing against. I'm not arguing against the fact that there are books, and these books have stories, and these stories can be read, and these stories can be analyzed, and these stories must be corroborated, and these stories must be studied like any other book, like the Old Testament, like the New Testament, like Nahjul Balagha, like any other book. It needs to be studied, needs to be corroborated, it needs to be analyzed like any other book. No, but with hadith, there's a different thing. When I say people worship the hadith worshippers, I mean that they will actually pull out a hadith and hold that up as an unquestionable fact of life. Now, there's the problem I have, you see. Even my friends, some of my friends that I have, and I have these debates and I have these arguments, they hold the position that you should stay or remain committed to the hadiths, and that these hadiths will do contain a complementary or a healthy augmentation of the Qur'an. Now, when I say augmentation, I mean a valid expansion on the Qur'an, a valid elucidation on the Qur'an, a valid explanation of the Qur'an. But that is exactly the problem, you see. When I had a discussion recently with a very, very close friend, that is my brother, whom I think is sincerely also as I am seeking to get to the right understanding, right? The point that was raised was that you can actually make hadith work by applying your mind rationally, by looking at the material. We can actually make the hadith say the right thing. My concern or my question or my objection to that is that has already been done. Nobody can beat the Salafists. Now, if you don't know what the Salafists are, you need to go and study and make sure you understand the Salafists. They are the Muslim literalists. They are the Muslim anti-free thinking or anti-intellectuals. Right? And their position is that hadith is there to replace your intellect. Hadith is there to replace your free thinking, because free thinking is a threat. You see, that is the basis of the Salafist, Atharist, is that hadith is there as a replacement of free thinking, because free thinking is one of the threats, is a threat to humanity and will lead to misguidance and to the wrong place. Right? Now, I said to this friend that the Salafists, in fact, they've done the due diligence. They've done the jarh wal ta'dil. They have done the scrutiny of every hadith. In fact, Salafists are not just locked in historical scholarship. There is contemporary Salafist scholarship. Would you think the great Shaik Albani is? Go on, if you have the time, and it wouldn't be, I think, very fruitfully spent, but go and find out who's Shaik Albani. He's a famous European Salafist scholar, emanating from, he's a contemporary scholar, I think he passed away recently. But he, in fact, spent endless hundreds or thousands of hours being paid by the Saudi government, being in the employ of the Saudi government as a lecturer at the university at some point, in analyzing the hadith, in looking and evaluating every hadith in Bukhari as well as in Muslim, I believe, and then publishing his famous works. I think one of his works is the weak hadiths in Islam, and then he looked at all the strong hadiths, and he actually did the homework. And he sadly for Bukhari came to the conclusion that there are actually a number of hadiths in Bukhari that are weak, and so he's kind of like frowned upon in many circles because he's taken a critical look at Bukhari. But what I said to this friend, and I'm still telling the story about this idea of trying to make hadith work, is that I said to him, look, this work was done. Even contemporary Salafist scholars have done the work of sifting through the hadith. And what do they arrive at? They arrive at the same dangerous, illogical ideas. For example, they don't reject the idea of a grown woman breastfeeding a grown strange man. They don't reject the hadith that the Prophet married a 5-year-old child or 6-year-old child and had intercourse with his child when she was a little girl of 9 years old. Subhanallah. The Prophet is above that, what they are saying, and Allah is above what they are claiming. So I still maintain, right, that even with all the scholarship and with all the sincere work and with everything and all the careful scrutiny, you're still going to end up with a mix or mishmash or a confused jumble if you try and treat hadiths as if all you need is a good sanad, a good string of narrators, and then the rest will sort itself out. No, the hadith cannot be read without proper intellectual, rational scrutiny. We have to look at the matan, the mim ta nun, the content of the hadith, not just the sanad. You see, the whole Salafi trend in Islam historically is obsessed with the sanad. They build a good sanad, they verify all the gentlemen in that sanad, or the women in some cases, and that is all they need. They put all the investment in the 5 rawis, the people who narrated that particular hadith. They refuse to look at the substance of the hadith, which is the matan. And what I'm saying is that just as we should be critical about the sanad, we should be critical about the matan, which is the actual content. It almost sounds like mutton for me, the word mutton, food. And so the meat, the meat of the hadith, the mutton, but it's an Arabic word. It's not. We're not referring to any form of meat here. But the content of the hadith should be scrutinized, should be evaluated rationally. And that is where I differ with the Salafist, is that they feel that once the sanad is sorted, the matan is unquestionable, right? It makes no sense at all for me, right? So I'm coming back to the turmoil that you are experiencing, right? What is this turmoil? This turmoil is as a result of having constructed over the years not just an idea in your minds, but having constructed your understanding of the world with that understanding in your mind. Now, around 2011, my world collapsed. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the intellectual and social environment in which I regarded as home, which I regarded as my home, and a home, an intellectual home, is a place where people give you positive feedback, where you return that positive feedback, and where a certain understanding predominates. It's where you are in a beautiful situation where you are at harmony with your tribe, or your intellectual tribe, I might call it. And that harmony that I had with my intellectual tribe, and we all have our tribes. Like, for example, you might be a very traditional Shafi'i, Ash'ari, or Hanafi Muslim, and you operate in those circles, and you feel comfortable there. You think, right, we all God's people, and we're all going to go to heaven, and that might be your feeling, right? I also had my tribe, and my tribe were more like the left-leaning Muslim community, those who are involved in social upliftment, those who are projecting a sort of, I hate saying this word, but it is really a sort of woke mentality that, we used to call it intellectual clarity or ideological clarity. Those who are not, and we had another derogatory word that we called the other Muslims, and we call them like donuts or something like that. And we felt that they are not intellectual, they don't have any intellectual clarity. And that was my intellectual tribe, and I felt comfortable with them. But we also read the Qur'an in a similar way. We understood Salah in a traditional way. We understood everything in a very traditional way. And we would just like be this fringe intellectual group trying to go up against the mass of Muslims. And it was an impossible task almost, because the mass really had the upper hand, because their scholarship, the mainstream sheikhs, Maulanas, and so on, they really always dominated. And the Muslim always drifts towards his Maulana and his sheikh. Because in the words of his Maulana and his sheikh, he finds comfort. The Maulana and the sheikh promises him Jannat, promises, will bury him and will recite on his grave when he dies, on his mother's grave, will be there when his child is born. And he always felt a sense of, the key moments in life, birth, death, marriage, that is when my Maulana is by my side, you see, my sheikh, my priest. And he feels a sense of commitment or comfort. The Qur'an uses the word wali, or sometimes it uses the word wali or Mawla or Wakil. And so he feels that the Maulana is my wali. In fact, the word Maulana is close to that meaning. Or my Maulana, my guardian, my protector, my guarantor, the one who stands by me. And when I close my eyes and I die one day, he will be there for me, and he will send me off to the right place, to heaven and to Jannah. So the problem we had as a group of fringe intellectual woke Muslims who want to have a slightly different direction, and we did receive a lot of inspiration from Iran, from the Islamic Revolution in 1979, and so I based a lot of it on that. But as we've seen by now, it is 40 years after that revolution, more than 40 years, 79 until 20, it's 43 years. We must be honest and realistic and realize that agenda, that approach, is not really getting through. Some people at one stage in my town felt that, if we just all become Shia, then that will solve it. We just need to move on and become like Iranians. We need to adopt their rituals. We need to sing like them. We need to speak like them. We need to shave our beards like them. We need to throw away our hats, our religious caps, and just grow a 5-day-old beard and just look like Iranians, and that's it. That will solve the problem. But in 2011, that world was further wrecked when the very people that I believed in, that I felt were my tribe intellectually, when that very tribe disintegrated. When I was at a very key position within that tribe, I was in the middle of a massive conflict within that, what can I call it, modern intellectual grouping. I was in the middle of it, and I just saw my world collapsing. The heroes that I had respected and looked up to, suddenly they lost that sheen, that shine, that glitz, that glimmer, and I saw them, many of them, for what they were. They were just ordinary people trying to benefit very, 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 in a very worldly way, some of them. And it damaged me, because I felt lost. I felt that if my people are no longer the people, and I know I can't go back to the donuts, we call them in Afrikaans koeksisters. I can't go back to the koeksisters, or to the donut Muslims, as we call them. Sorry, but in a derogatory way, because they were really people who did not think. They were people who just wanted to be part of a happy community where they could be where they thought they were comfortable. And so when my people no longer gave me that comfort that I'm in the right place, I went on a deep depression. I needed to understand, where am I wrong? And of course, when you switch on the TV, when you watch the news, I remember sitting in front of the TV one morning, and there was a massacre going on in Palestine again, or in Lebanon. And I remember saying to myself, Ya Allah, where are you? That ugly doubt. Allah, where are you? Where are you? I need you. I need you. The Palestinians need you. The Muslims need you. I need you. My community needs you. The world needs you. We're in a mess. And I remember that morning, I was so disillusioned. I walked around, my eyes were filled with tears, and I just had a complete sense of aimlessness, meaninglessness, directionlessness. And as I was going through this crisis, and it went on for a while, as this crisis kept on, I looked at the other Muslims, I looked at the Shia Jama'ah, I looked at the so-called enlightened Muslims who are like looking at hadiths in an enlightened way. But I just got the feeling that, you know what, no man, no, you guys are all spinning your wheels. You're spinning your wheels. You've given yourself a false sense of security. You guys in the Shia center come here. I went there, sat there for big nights. I saw the guys. I've tried to, find meaning and to make it work. But I mean, I'm not a stupid person. I can see when something is just an internal sort of titillatory exercise, right? When something, I judge a tree by its fruits, my friends. I judge a tree by its fruits. Don't tell me this is something noble when I don't see anything noble coming out of it and benefiting a lot of people outside. Don't tell me I've spent 2 million or 3 million this year and I don't see 2 or 3 million rands benefits on the outside of your society. I'm not a fool, you see. And I went there and by the way, they became embroiled also in this massive conflict in which they also, disappointed me severely, some of the key figures in there, and I just kind of like lost faith in these men and some women also. And I went into a deep sense of loss, of failure to understand, to make sense of. And then one day, I invited a friend over in my state of, I had a few questions. Like, for example, one question was, what the heck is the jinn? What the heck is the jinn? And I refuse to believe they're little fire demons. Because I was there also. Believe me, I joined the Sufi orders for a number of years. And I was part of a Sufi tariqah for a number of years. And I can tell you now, my dear friends, I'm a person who understands much of the mystical aspects of Islam. I was there in these Sufi orders. I spent my weekends, hours and hours on end, in reflective exercises where we sat, we did chants, we visited the graves, we spent endless hours. I sat nights. I actually spent extended hours at grave sites to overcome my fear of the dead, and to understand the Sufi Islam. And I was there, my friends. I was there. I looked, I sat, I gave the time. And I honestly, the immediate problem that I experienced was, what is the jinn? In 2000, around about 2013, and I just went online and I said, what is the jinn from a rational perspective? And then I ended up at a couple of sites that were very weird. Very, very weird. They call themselves Ahlul Qur'an, and I just thought, these guys are completely lost. They are talking crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. They are going against the core beliefs that I have always held on to. And then I just went into that rabbit hole for a while, and but I felt a sense of aversion. I felt a sense of no, it's a way out of what I think in my ballpark, right? And I just kind of treated it with a bit of what is the word, skepticism. I just thought, no, these are youngsters that are really dabbling in severe or extreme speculative thought. And I believe that I'm not a speculative person. I need to, whatever is true and righteous must be based on sound reasoning, right? And there was too much speculation. And I remember this website, freeminds.org.com, free-minds.org, and that's a kind of a mother site for a lot of these speculative thoughts and ideas based on Qur'an alone. So I then, I just went on my merry own way, and I wrote a book that time. In 2012, I wrote a book for my own edification. I wrote this book, Our Godly Struggle, in which I tried to make sense of a lot of ideas, and I thought maybe if I put it all out there, maybe I'll get clarity. And I subsequently obviously revised a lot of what I wrote in that book. Now, I'm fond of writing. I wrote quite a number of other booklets and for Muslim schools and so on also. So what I then did was I just sort of like unresolved, the issue of what is the jinn. And one day I invited a good friend. Well, he wasn't a good friend. He was also an author of a massive work, an enormous book on science and the Qur'an. A very rationalistic, highly educated scholar in my town. And he wrote this book, and it was an immense work. It was obviously evident of a lot of detailed research from the Qur'an. He's still very prominent. He didn't give me permission to use his name, so he's still on radio. He's still a kind of popular personality, on radio at least, Muslim radio. And I've become very friendly with him in subsequent years. He's a doctor of sorts, he's a doctor. So he's an educated, learned man. And I saw his book, and I met with him, and I wanted to discuss the book just as getting some more information. And from this man, I also learned that this man his salah is slightly different, and I was quite perturbed when I met him the first time, and he told me, look, he doesn't really do the salah the way everyone does it. And I was a bit perturbed, and I thought, and I remember the argument I had with him. I told him, look, Doc, I think, you know what, we're not here to build new religions, and salah is salah, and you have your ideas, but I'm a bit skeptical about what you're saying there. And but I also met some of his friends, and they were kind of a small group, and I met with them, and I could see that the ideas here were kind of like radical, because they were touching on the core aqidah. Aqidah for Muslims is the core orthodox beliefs, and we all like to play around with Islam, with what Islam is, but we rarely go and tamper with aqidah, which is core beliefs. Now, core beliefs would be things like the kalima shahada, like the role of hadith and sunnah. And so or the 5 pillars, right? You see, we would really go and touch on those things. Or, in my own situation, I used to question politically historical figures, in line with what the Shia maybe are arguing for, like, some Sahabi are not righteous, others are righteous, and the Ahlul Bayt Hadith are better than the non-Ahlul Bayt Hadith. And so I did question some of the Aqidah, but not really core essential parts of it. And these guys were questioning really core essential parts of the Aqidah, and I was a little bit uncomfortable with it. But as time goes by, my brothers and sisters, as time goes by, you just go for it. You develop a hunger for more information. And you go and you read, and you go and reread your own beliefs. And that is really what I was all about, was rereading my own beliefs and my own understanding, re-evaluating it. And I needed to get a means of evaluating it. It was also during this period since 2013 that I enrolled for a doctoral degree in research and education. And I thought, let me learn about research. Let me learn what is truth, what is reality. Now, where am I going to learn what is truth, what is reality? From the best. From the best. And I only learn from the best. I can't learn from the Saudis about research and reality and truth. They run to America to learn those things. They run to America to learn what is science and what is technology and what is truth and what is, knowledge as such. And so I went to a Western institution because I had a very good, healthy Muslim education already. Remember, I mentioned to you that I spent a few years in Egypt back in the 90s. So I already had, and I needed to have a firm, solid Western understanding of what is research, what is knowledge. And I used that knowledge and that understanding, and every day is a day where I basically reconstructed a new outlook and a new understanding. It wasn't an easy process. And I'm addressing you now again who are feeling dejected, who are feeling insecure, are feeling fearful, because you have reached a point where you have now to question the things that you are supposed to hold sacred. And remember, you're not up against yourself, you're up against people around you. You're up against all the zombies around you who are infected with that contamination. You know, a good teacher of mine, Ahmad Qasim, I'll mention his name, he once said, if you are served a cup of lemonade with 2 teaspoons of urine in every day, if you are served a glass of lemonade with 2 teaspoons of urine every day since you were a child, and somebody comes one day, the guy who died, who gave you the 2 teaspoons of urine, and you don't add the urine, the man is going to complain, this lemonade is not tasting right. You understand? You're going to complain about the lemonade. You're going to go to the chef or to the person who made your lemonade, and you're going to say, don't give me this crap lemonade. Are you mad? I need my lemonade. And this is such a good analogy that this Imam Ahmad Qasim gave me with this lemonade, is that this is really what we are asking, is we're removing the urine from your lemonade. That is what is happening. And you are complaining. This thing is tasting nasty. It doesn't have the right taste. And, even worse, maybe there were 2 teaspoons of urine and some other contaminants also in that lemonade. And it was making you sick. It was making you feel unwell. Besides the fact that you thought it tasted nice, or it tasted, delicious, it made you unwell. It messed up your life. And I can speak for myself only when I say that period of upheaval, of discord in my own mind, wasn't made easy by those who were then judging me for not following the exact way. And the first people that judged me were really my own people, my own family, my own closest, people, some of the very, very close people. They were telling me, no, what the hell are you on about now? You're going against the core essence of Islam, my friend. You better sort yourself out. I can't associate with what you are talking here now. And that is what I faced from some people very close to me. And some other close people to me who respected me, who loved me, said, I think you're making sense. So I had to deal with that. I didn't just have to deal with my own mind that was in a mess. I had to deal with people who were challenging these things, right? Very close people. In any case, like people who felt that the way of the Shia is the best way. Some people felt the way of the Sunnis, the Ikhwanul Muslimin, Some people who felt that, what you on your own trip here and whatever, right? So I had to deal with all of that. My bottom line is I reconstructed in my mind using the best education I could get in terms of what is knowledge, what is research. And I share with it, sometimes you will see on my channel, I share with you some of these ideas. Critical realism, fractured reflexivity, agency versus structure, social structure, cultural structure, the colonization of the mind. All of these ideas, I in my research, in my doctorate, I have a set of more than 400 works of reference. I have it, it's there. I spent untold numbers, funds of my money, everything I owned, all the money that I ever had, I spent it in that study, in acquiring the books, in doing the research, in getting a proper high-level education at a quality, solid university. And I published my thesis. It's open there for everyone to see. And I was given an extremely positive feedback on the thesis by the university, right? So what I'm saying to you is the years 2011, 2012, 2013, up till about 2016, 17 were the years of reconstructing my understanding. Allah also afflicted me with poor health. I became immobilized. I couldn't walk for 3 to 6 months when I had several collapsed discs in my spine, and I was immobilized. And all of these, you see, when I read the Qur'an, I read it with all of the challenges, all the tests, all the upheaval that I was dumped into, and how that molded and how that shaped my understanding. In the end, every position that crystallized to me was the product of a stringent process of verification. When I say to you today that when I read the Quran, the word salah does not mean essentially a ritual daily prayer 5 times a day. It is not something I say lightly. It is something I say out of conviction, because I've read every word. In this period, when I was during my period of questioning, I read the Quran several times. After I read, obviously discovered that there is something called a Quranic understanding of Islam which can be without hadith. I read it. And I read the word salah. I read every verse where the word salah is. And it dawned upon me one day that we are the victims of a careful manipulation of the meaning of the Quran. We are the victims of a careful, orchestrated, long-standing tampering with the meaning of the Quran. Now, yes, you might say, Anwar, you sound like somebody who's lost your mind. And so, no. You've lost your mind if you don't pay attention to this. Look at your history, because it goes hand in hand with your understanding. I know history. The Shia Shuyukh and Maulanas and Ayatollahs and Hujjatul Islams, they taught me history as I never knew it before. You see, they took me out of the fantasy history to the real history of Islam, because all you got for the main part of your life, if you're a Sunni student in Sunni schools, is you had the fantasy version. People died. People were massacred. Muslim killed Muslim. Muslims murdered masses of Muslims. Sayyidina Ali was killed by a Muslim. Sayyidina Uthman was killed. Umar was killed by a Muslim. These things. But your mind has been trained to brush it off, to throw it out of your mind, to throw it aside. That Muawiyah went to war with the Prophet's son-in-law. That the Muawiyah's son killed the Prophet's grandson at Karbala. These things. But you know what? Your history, your idea of history is park it. Don't think about it. But yet when it comes to hadith, which emanates out of that bloody history, you know, hadith is a product of that bloody civil war. Hadith comes out of that. You know, hadith is not there in spite of the civil war that the Muslims had. The first civil war, the second civil war, the third civil war, the unending civil war that continues right till today. Hadith is not there in spite of that. Hadith is there as a product of those civil wars. The deep, deep, deep historical roots of hadith are the civil war. Every rawi, every person who narrates a hadith, whether he's a sahabi or not, he is implicated in that civil war. He played a role in that civil war. Now you're going to tell me about Abu Hurairah, some of them stayed aloof, some of them did not get involved. No, my friend. No, my friend. If you're on the payroll of one of the people in one of the key parties in the civil war, then you are in the civil war. Don't lie to yourself. If there's a civil war between Saudi Arabia and Iran tomorrow, and you are paid by Iran to teach something in Malaysia, you are funded by Iran, you are implicated in that civil war. If you run a little madrasa, hifz school in South Africa, but you get your funding from Saudi Arabia or your bursaries, you are implicated. You are part of that civil war, my friend. Why? Because one of the belligerents, you are on the payroll of one of those belligerents. And I know friends who are on the payroll of the Saudis. I know friends who are on the payroll of Iran. I've never been on the payroll of either of the two. I've had offers. I've had an offer to go here, go there, to be funded. I've never ever taken one free ticket or one free handout or one free bursary from any of them. I received a bursary from the University of the Al-Azhar, a very, very meager bursary, amounted to something like $20 a month, or no less. I think it was about $5 or $10 a month, dollars. And my needs were more like 2,000-3,000, and that I got from my own family, my brothers. My brothers funded me to go and study, and they used their own resources from their own business. So I was never on the payroll of anyone, not 1 cent from a Saudi, not 1 cent from Iran. I was an independent free operator. In fact, when I did my PhD, my doctoral degree, I did it with my own funding also. So let me come back to the main point here, is that how did I rewire? How did I deal with the question, with the struggle, with the upheaval mentally and intellectually? All I can say is that, yaqeen or yaqeen, certainty, confirmation, is something which you only reach. And you see, yaqeen is an ongoing process, because knowledge is an ongoing process. But I achieve yaqeen in 2 ways. Number one, by corroborating things rationally with myself and with all the books that I can get my hands on, and all the qawls, the aqwal, all the words and all the opinions and all the views of many people. I try to almost like make music, make those things become music to me. Now, what is music? Music is where the noise is suppressed and the harmony or the melody emerges. And I'm at that point now, my dear friends, my dear brothers and sisters, where I hear only the melody. I don't hear the noise anymore. When I see the poor guy fighting and writing nasty comments on my YouTube channel about you lost, you Satan, you devil, go away, you devil, whatever, I just feel that this man has no music in his ears. He still has the devil in his ears, because he sounds like the devil, because he invokes the devil. I don't use that kind of anger, that kind of hatred, that venom, that poison. I don't have that in me. You see, for me, the Qur'an is a sweet book, and if you only listen to it, you will hear the music. But if you try to, it's like, do you like music? Like, let's say what is a good good musician. If you put on a beautiful song by Pink Floyd, right? If you put on, what is a nice song of Pink Floyd now? I don't want to go for you. We don't need no education. Comfortably Numb. Go and listen to that, Bjorn. It's a beautiful song. Comfortably Numb. It's the name of the song. Comfortably Numb. If you put that song on, and you also have a guy beating a drum here on the one side while the song is playing, and you have another guy blowing a trumpet wildly on the other side while that song is playing, are you going to enjoy it? Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd? You're not, because you can't hear the melody. You are being disturbed by the noise. And that is the Qur'an, my friends. The noise is drowning out the melody. And when you start reading the Qur'an without the noise, the hadith noise, the melody comes through. The beauty comes through. You must only free yourself from these false impositions on the hadith. Let me show you a verse before I go on. And I want to I don't want to go on forever. So I'm going to just show you a verse in the Qur'an that is so beautiful, that will put you at ease. Look at this verse here. And all the solace you need is in the Qur'an, my dear friends. This verse says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وكيف أخاف ما أشركتم ولا تخافون أنكم أشركتم بالله ما لم ينزل به عليكم سلطانا فأي الفريقين أحق بالأمن إن كنتم تعلمون. How can I have fear for that which you falsely worship? I'm going to quickly make it literal for you. How can I fear your Hadith Islam when you have no fear for co-opting false authorities, false gods with God, when you have no fear for co-opting false ideas with Allah, with God, in the absence of any independent warrant in your possession? You see, the Hadith servants, the Hadith worshippers, their only proof of Hadith is they show you 2, 3 or 4 verses in the Quran where Allah says, وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ رَسُولُ فَخُذُوا وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْ فَانْتَهُوا. Whatever the Prophet gives you, take it. Whatever he doesn't give you, don't take it or reject it or stay away from it. They have that, and then they have Ati'ullah, Ati'ur Rasul, and they have all of these things, and they use verses to tell you that Bukhari is divine. The word of Bukhari is the word of Allah. And that is it. That is really what it comes to. So they abuse these verses, but that's not a warrant. You cannot. You see, what is a warrant? They have no independent warrant in your possession. You have nothing that proves your position. You are invoking verses in a false way. Now this verse is saying, follow this verse with me, and you'll hear the music, you'll hear the beauty coming out. This is a prophet reasoning with a bunch of skeptics, right? This is in Surah An'am. And the Prophet is debating once again, as with the countless times he's in Mecca here. This verse plays itself out in Mecca, where the Prophet is just a fledgling mission man who's trying to promote the idea, and most of the people hate him. Actually, they discard him. They don't want to hear his nonsense, so-called nonsense. And they have their own ideas, right? And some of them were even like today, like Muslims, they had their own books, they had their own religion, they had their own priests, and they didn't want to hear his nonsense. And they told him, look, stop your nonsense, because we already have guidance. We have the books of God, and we don't need more additional stories from your side. And he comes up with this amazing argument which Allah actually puts on his tongue. Allah actually puts this argument on his tongue, and Allah says to him, say to them, because it is in inverted commas. It's a quote. The Prophet is instructed to say to them, how can I have fear for that which you falsely worship, your hadith books, your Bukharis, your Abu Hurairas, when you have no fear for co-opting false gods with Allah? Now, false gods are false authorities, false claimants to unquestionable obedience. When you have no fear for co-opting these false gods with God, in the absence of any independent warrant in your possession, you have no proof from Allah that I have to believe in these books. You have no proof. Which of the two arguments is more rationally satisfying if you were to apply knowledge? He's arguing to them that I have something which is a clear book, which is a warrant, which doesn't rely on any other thing. It is just God's word, plain and simple. You claim to have all these other sources of guidance and authority, which is your rituals, your traditions, your hadiths, your stories, your ancient mythology. You come with all of that, but where's your warrant? You have no warrant. I come with a powerful warrant, which is like the book is the book is marked, it is signed by God. Right? And so the verse really clarifies the idea that if there is something in this hadith literature or in this alternative ritual system or this obstacle course which they call Islam, if that obstacle course, that personal stoic idea of stoicism, based on Greek stoicism, because that is what go and read up on stoicism, ancient Greek stoicism, Stoicism. The Stoics believed that life is basically a dread. It is dread. It is an obstacle course for the sake of being an obstacle course. There is no relief from the obstacle course, and the Greek Stoics, and which also filtered into the Nazarenes and into the Essenes and into some of the Christian monastic orders, that Stoic idea, that idea of life is a slog. Life is a slog, and the slog is there regardless. That slog view of Islam is you don't even know it comes from outside of Islam. It comes from some Christian monasticism. It comes from Greek Stoicism. It comes from Marcus Aurelius, from the Roman emperors. Go and read their books and you'll see it. It looks exactly like Islam. Go and read the works of Marcus Aurelius and you'll see that this Islam, this Stoic Islam, this Islam that is an obstacle course, a never-ending obstacle course, Islam where you must deprive yourself of sleep, you must just unnecessarily go into physical, mental, intellectual, whatever hardship, is not the Qur'an's Islam. The Qur'an's Islam is something else. If you read the Qur'an, you don't get the idea that you are supposed to be in a constant discomfort, situation of discomfort. We've made the night as a means of rest. What is the night is made? The night has been made for repose, for rest. And so, yes, you can make the additional sacrifices for God, but sacrifice is generally in Islam and in the Quran, it is coupled with a struggle. If you have an enemy that is challenging you, that is declaring war on your people, then the hardship Islam must come into operation. Thus, Islam of martyrdom, of sacrifice, of combat, of confrontation, of then that Islam comes into place. It's not just an end in itself, the hardship. The hardship is there for a purpose and for a particular time. And the Prophet had that Islam in Mecca. So all I'm saying to you is that, you are looking for being comforted and having an understanding of are you right? Are you're feeling very insecure? And I'm responding to my dear friends and my dear brothers who've written to me, who've sent me messages by WhatsApp and through Telegram. Have no fear, my friend. Have no fear, because I have no fear. I've heard the music. I've seen the truth. And the only thing that is scaring you, is not yourself. Because your mind will be true. Your mind will work. It will do its job. It will know what is right and wrong. The fear you have is to overcome the qawmul kafirin, those who want to disturb your peace. It is not you who have a problem. It is they who have a problem with you. You see, you have found satisfaction, because why? You wouldn't be in turmoil if you didn't see the sense of what we are saying on our channels, people like me. And by the way, I'm not the only one. I feel tremendous comfort from other YouTubers, from other writers, when I read and watch their videos. Umar Ramahi, if I watch his videos, the correctional officer who watch his videos, who else is there? To some extent, Sam Gerrans. However, I remain critical. You see, I don't fall for anything. Maybe even the Turkish guy, what is his name? Adib. I can't get to the whole name now. Look, I don't fall for anything hook, line, and sinker. I mean, I've read about the 19. I've read about the flat Earth stories. I've read about some of the crazy, more like fringe ideas that these guys have. Not the 19 in that case, but the fact that some of the verses are not really in the Qur'an or something like that. Flat Earth. I honestly, I'm at the point where the Qur'an is my anchor, not them. I use them, but I draw on them intellectually, and I do, but I never ever. It's only the Qur'an that I accept unquestioningly. And there are people that tell me, have you read this person's work? Have you watched those guys' videos? Yes, I've probably read all of those videos. Remember, I told you I've made an intensive search of what is going on. I've probably seen it all. I mean, most of it, 90% of it. And what I can tell you is that just because I'm not buying it, it's not that I'm against the Quran. I know, I read the Quran. Like, some of you are telling me, why are you promoting a fast, like fasting with food and drink and sex, that fast? Now, I tell you, I've read the Quran. I've read the verses. And your argument does not appeal to me. And if you still have a problem, well, I've read the verses on the earth, and it does not appeal to me. I have an intellectual ability to know what is right and wrong. I'm not a stupid idiot. I'm not. Don't tell me that I have to believe the earth is flat because you believe the earth is flat. And if you want to reject me for that, go ahead. Unsubscribe. I have the intellectual wherewithal, the ability, and I'm not a NASA employee. I don't get anything from NASA. And by the way, it doesn't mean I believe the moon landings were real. I mean, I'm not a fool also there. So I'm that is for me still a matter that it requires proof. I don't see enough proof that it really took place. I'm just being honest here. I mean, it could have happened, it could not have happened. I mean, I'm a skeptic. That's why I'm an agnostic. But I'm not an agnostic on the earth that is flat. I believe the earth is. So what I'm saying to you is that you, in your struggle and in your security, you're going to come across things that are, you see, what you should not do is buy everything everyone is selling, because that is going to, the devil also has its means and ways. So the devil will also go and lodge itself within the Ahlul Qur'an or within the Qur'anist movement and will pervert certain ideas, because that is how the devil operates. You see, when people are onto something good, then the devil will always come there and make it ugly and try and take a good thing and twist it, make it ugly. Like the fact that we're reading the Quran with understanding, then somebody will come now and overanalyze the verses. Crazy analysis, what they call a batini reading of the verses. They will go and look for crazy meanings that nobody else can get in that verse. Now, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. The Quran is for the most part very literal, very straightforward. Muhkamat. The muhkamat verses are the Quran. They are the beef, the meat, the main essential aspect of the Quran is its straightforward verses. But they are a metaphor or analogy or similitude. There are these verses in the Quran, but they are not the majority of verses. Don't turn every verse into a metaphorical verse. Then you are corrupting. Then you are doing the devil's work if you make every verse metaphorical. You turn every verse into a mystical verse. The same with turning every verse into a literal verse. You are again playing the role of shaitan. You are fooling around with the Quran. And the Quran actually makes that claim, that those who have sickness in their minds, they will fool around like that. Let me show you the verse quickly, since we are on the topic, and it's part of this discussion. Allah says, هو الذي أنزل عليك الكتاب منه آيات محكمات هن القرآن هو الكتاب وأخر متشابهات. He is the one that revealed the book to you. In it are passages with a literal meaning. These form the basis of the law. Others again are metaphorical. It is those with crooked minds who take the metaphorical passages literally, seeking to create discord, claiming they can explain its meaning. No one fully understands their meaning except God. Instead, those endowed with knowledge say, we embrace the truthfulness of the entirety as from our Lord and Sustainer. Higher consciousness is not attainable except by possessors of intellect. And so I want to end off with that, is that your salvation, your comfort, your peace of mind will lie in the Quran. And it will increase by reading the Quran. It will increase with engaging with your fellow seekers and by talking with them. And specific examples, for example, there are specific things that are so difficult for you, like the salah. I say to you, there's nothing that is saying that you should not just continue with salah the way you have been making it. It's not a core position that I advance that people should stop making their salah. All I'm saying is that if you see somebody who is making salah differently from the way you make it, and they choose to make their observance in a different form, you have no right to judge them. You see, because the Quran does never ever at any point stipulate how you should do the salah. It says salah has been prescribed on you at regular times. But it does not state how. So if you find somebody is making salah in a different way, for heaven's sake, I even think the Christian person who bows down in front of his bed at night with his arms folded, the child that I've seen in some movies sit down and bend their heads and pray to Almighty God, that's their salah. That's a salah. They're connecting with God. They're praying to Him. So, my position is not that, no, don't go on with salah. My position is those people who tell you that if you don't do the salah exactly as they wrote in their books, then you will burn in hell. I reject. That is my rejection. But for you, if you want to continue with salah, proceed. You know what? It's an institution with me also. I have a regular salah routine now, and we follow the general pattern, the way salah has come down, from the Jafari to the Hanafi to the Shafi to the Maliki. There's a general routine, the way you stand, the way you recite. Of course, I don't do anything except praise God in my salah and appeal to Him. my postures and my actions, what I always refer to as the kata, the physical moves. Those are moves that I continue because it is there, it is entrenched, and I don't feel that, but I don't see it being divinely instituted. I see it as, it's like driving on the left side of the road here in South Africa. It's like a convention. And why must I now decide to drive on the right-hand side of the road? It doesn't make sense to me. It's being different for the sake of being different. But my attitude towards that salah is completely different. I don't now anymore feel that God is judging me because my arms are not hanging, it's being held up, or God is now judging me because I didn't sit iftirask and tawarruk in my first and second sittings, and I didn't recite this correctly, that correctly. That is gone, my friends. That is gone. I make the salah generally as the tradition is going, not holding or advancing the belief that that is God's salah. That is our salah, which we have sort of conventionalized across all madhab. But I cannot tell you that the Qur'an says that you have to stand and sit like this in salah. There's nothing. There's not even something in the hadith. I told you, I have videos on it. I opened Kitab Imam Shafi'i, where he sets out how to make salah, and I showed you in that Kitab which I have the full set. I went to the book of Salah. And I took out every hadith that Imam Shafi'i speaks about the salah. It does not amount to a detailed set of instructions, those hadiths. And by the way, Bukhari and Muslim came only after Imam Shafi'i. So how the great hadith, muhaddithin, came after Imam Shafi'i. So what now? Now the Atharis has a problem. Now he has to cancel the madhabs because the hadith came after the madhabs. That's why there's a war between, or a silent war between the Atharists and the Ash'aris, the madhabis and the hadithists. Because the madhabis, the Shafis, the Hanafis, the Malikis, they precede the time of hadith, the great era of the muhaddithin. So how can they claim to have truth when hadith only came later? And they operate on different hadiths. So my friends, all I have to say to you is that the only reason you still hang on to the old traditional hadith Islam is because you're afraid to go against the priests, the people who are paid to lie, because that's what is happening. They are paid to promote or to maintain the lie. Simple as that. It's as simple as that. Your Maulana, your Sheikh, your priest who is at your mosque, who you in your community, he makes a living out of upholding hadith. The people want him to promote that Islam, and he has to do it to get his salary at the end of the month. And why do they want that Islam? Because they were taught that from the time that they were babies. They don't have an intellectual commitment to it. It's power of tradition. They really believe that if I don't follow the hadiths, Abu Huraira and Muslim and Bukhari and all these people, I will go to hell. And they're afraid of that. But you know what? The sad thing is they don't read the Quran. They believe the Maulana. Ask them, how many of them who say the Maulana is right, how many of them have read the Quran with understanding? Because the Quran doesn't address the Maulana. The Quran doesn't say, Ya ayyuha shuyukh, or Ya ayyuha a'imma, or Ya ayyuha rabbaniyin. The Quran does not address the Maulanas. The Quran does not call Ya ayyuha Mawali. The Quran speaks Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu. It speaks to you. The Quran disrespects those Maulanas. It disses the Maulanas. Yes, the Quran disses the Maulanas and the priests. It goes directly to you. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. And then you say, no, it's not speaking to me. I must speak to the Maulana. He will tell me. No. Quran is speaking to you. It's asking you. You have it there. It's a democratic book. Everyone has it. It's in English. It's in any language you like. If you don't like the translation, there's 25 English or 30 English translations. I also have a partial translation. You can ask me for a copy in the comment section. And so the Quran speaks about you who are a seeker, who believe in the book. And then the Quran also speaks to mankind, Ya ayyuhan nas, in general. Never ever speaks to sometimes speaks to Ya ayyuhan nabi, to the Nabi. Never ever in one passage, you show me a passage where the Quran addresses the clergy, the priests. No, the Quran actually hates the priests. The Quran hates the priests. In fact, I'll show you. You don't believe me? Let me show you. Look here. You think I'm lying to you? Listen to this. Why then do the rabbis and the priests not prevent them from their depraved discourse and from feeding off what is illicit? Shameful indeed is what they produce. Rabbaniyun wal ahbar, which is your scholars, your holy men, your so-called saints. The Quran does not like them, my friends. They are going to be the cause that many people end up in hell. Here's another one. They adopted their priests and their holy men as lords in preference to God and the Messiah, Mary's son, whereas they were instructed to be devoted to only one God. No God is there except him. He remains far above their blasphemy. And here's another one. There are indeed many priests and holy men who unjustly exploit the people financially while barring them from the path of God. Do you still think Allah loves the priests? Do you still think your God loves the priest, my friend? That God, Allah, has a healthy skepticism of the priests. Why? Because they are there on their own platform trying to shout louder than God. But they cannot outclass Allah. You see, the elegance, the beauty, the logic, the rationality, the harmony that comes from Allah's words is higher than their mishmash, jumbled up message where they try and confuse people. So I want to conclude. It's been more than an hour that I've spoken to you heart to heart. My friends, you go and make salah the way you like. And if there's a traditional salah in your community, if you're a Muslim living in a Muslim community and the mosque has a certain way of making salah, there's nothing wrong with joining in. That's what I do. I go on a Friday, even though I have a position on Jumu'ah. I believe Jumu'ah is an innovation. Wallahi, I believe it is. It is an added in thing. But I have a Muslim community, I have a tradition, which is not against. You see, I'm not hurting the Quran by going. I'm not going against God by going to the Jumu'ah. I am joining my family, my community there. When I make salah, the way Imam Shafi'i or the way Imam Ja'far taught, because my salah is kind of a mix between the two. It's a traditional way. It's like the way I drive. It's like paying for my parking. It's like having my vehicle licensed. It's just being part of a society. We're not here to create hermits and to create social misfits and for you to become a complete isolated human. No, you must love your community. The Quran wants you to love your community, to be connected to your community, not to be harsh and to be to arrogate yourself above them. You should be part of your people, and if that means following the conventions they follow, then let it be. And that is, I think, my parting words with you. But it is your perspective. I'm questioning your and my orientation. I'm not questioning every single thing we do. It's like you might still do a lot of these things, but your orientation, your perspective is different now. Instead of having looked at salah as something that, I can't keep my fingers open, I must keep my fingers closed when I sit down, I must keep my forehead open, instead of becoming crazy about that minutia, I'm saying to you, relax. Relax. Make salah, follow the convention, and make your own salah also. Make the salah the way the Qur'an says you should make it. Because I can already hear some of them saying, wow, he's saying people can make any way they want to make. Now, you know what? Let me rather take that back, and I'm going to tell you, make salah the Qur'an tells you to make salah. Because I don't know how they're going to tell me that I'm wrong saying that. I'm saying to you, make salah the way the Qur'an instructs you to make salah. And you know what I mean when I say that. What I mean is that the Qur'an does not have any detailed formula on salah. Neither has the hadith, by the way. But the Qur'an does not have a detailed formula. The Qur'an merely says the word salah is a system of being connected socially, observing, connected to the law, connected to God, connected to your people. That is salah. It's an aligning of yourself with the law, with the people, with God. And you do that in whatever the way the Qur'an prescribes. If you want to do it according to the conventional way that they do at your mosque, by all means. I wouldn't bring in anything except praise of God and dua to Him in my salah. I think you should also not bring in anything else. My friends, and then there were other things. If you watch the videos, you'll see there are certain areas where I depart radically from the established understanding. Like, for example, I'm just going to one more thing and then I'll close off. The mirath, the inheritance. People firmly believe that the Qur'an has come out with a position in Surah Baqarah and then changed its mind in Surah Nisa. Right? First of all, Allah said you can inherit, you can assign your legacy in any way which is just and commonly acceptable. And then in the next verse, Allah gave you a detailed formula to your children. You must give double to the boys. My friends, we cannot cancel verses. That's a false understanding of the Quran. It's also a misunderstanding of the word nasikh and mansukh. A nuskha is to make a copy of something. Nasikh means the reissue of an already issued law. And when Allah says this verse here, when Allah speaks this verse here, because it's important in this discussion also, because people have played all sorts of tricks on the Quran. Ma nansakh min ayatin aw nunsiha na'ti bi khayrin minha. For any past directive that we reissue, you see, that's the thing is, ma nansakh is not cancel. The word nansakh doesn't mean cancel. Go and read the Arabic dictionaries. You're fooling around with the Quran. Ma nansakh min ayatin. Whatever past directive we allowed to be forgotten, that we reissue, to make a nuskha of something. Go to any Arab country and ask somebody, give somebody a page. Give somebody a page, right? Give somebody a page and tell them, Ana aiz nuskha. Go and say to any Arab, Ana urid nuskhatan. From a book or from, what they're going to do is, they're going to put it in a machine and make a copy. The word nansakh means whatever we reissue. Or anything that we allow to be forgotten over time, we now provide a better or at least equally effective one. Do you then not realize that God has control over everything? So it was important that I just wanted to, that's the last verse I want to mention, is that the Quran does not abrogate itself. Neither does the Hadith abrogate the Quran. The Quran, what it might do is a law that was issued to the previous nations, to the Israelites or, to the people of Noah or whatever, it might be reissued. So that same law is reissued. For example, there were certain dietary practices that were issued to the Bani Israel, to the Israelites. And they were not allowed to eat anything with a split hoof. And the law was reissued in a different way. All right? so that only pork, carrion, and so on became disallowed. So the verse clearly states that when Allah reissues a verse that came before time, it is reissued, or when a new one is, or when a directive is issued which in a matter that was forgotten, it will be better or more, or at least equally effective. Go and read that verse. The problem is people have translated the word nansakh as cancel. Subhanallah. Imagine God hasn't got the foresight to give the Qur'an that, because once you start cancelling the verses, you start cancelling how many verses? Because some people now say like more than 100 verses are cancelled. How do you get guidance from a book where you don't know which verses are cancelled? So that nonsense we must stop, my friends. There's no nasikh and mansukh in that sense. A nasikh verse is a reissued verse. It's a copy. It's a directive that was issued in before time and is reissued. That is a nasikh. And go and test what I'm telling you. What is a nuskha? It is a copy. It is a reissuing of something that exists. I think I will wrap it up there, my dear friends. You are on the right path. Do not fear when you are committed to the hablillah. The Quran itself says, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَمَا تَفَرَّقَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ إِلَّا بَعْدَ جَاءَتْهُمُ الْبَيِّنَةُ. The Quran speaks about your confusion, your state of being perplexed, your state of being conflicted. But in that state of conflict, the Quran says, go to the rope. Save yourself using the rope. You know, when you are in turbulent waters and you are drowning in thoughts and in thinking and in confusion, find the rope of Allah and pull yourself up. And that rope is the Quran, my friends. And in another verse it says, the people of the book have gone astray. They've gone into disagreement, discord. After they got a simple, clear bayina, a book, they still differed. Why? They needed more than Allah. They needed Abu Hurairah. They needed this Maulana. They needed that Sheikh. Just take Allah for your Maulana, my friends. Go today, do this to yourself now. Say, my Mawla is Allah. And my kitab, my mufti is Allah. And I'm going to read the mufti, my Mawla and my mufti's message to me. And then you open the Quran and you read. I would recommend the translation of Shakir. I would recommend the translation of Asad, Muhammad Asad. I will recommend the translation of Muhammad Ali. I kind of caution against Yusuf Ali's translation because the English is so elusive. It's like Shakespearean language. It's not relatable language. So go and read Shakir's translation. He's an Egyptian. Go and read Assad's translation. He's a European man who became Muslim. Very, very good thinking. Go and read Pickthall's translation. Go and read Muhammad Ali. Yes, people say he's an Ahmadi, but his translation is good. I mean, and you always keep an open mind. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wallahu A'lam.